Hello and good Monday afternoon to all of you. The beginning of yet another week of lockdown. I mean, is it ever going to end? I asked myself. I had hoped we might get a few answers from Boris this morning, but I was very pleased to see he was alive and kicking and doing his Churchill bit, but not giving anything away yet. I think the rumours of expect something by the end of this week were sadly not correct. And I think we've probably all got to button down for a little bit longer so that we don't get some sort of horrible bounce back with this terrible silent killer that is about us. Now, obviously, we've all been experiencing difficulties, challenges, but some of us have really already quite taken to this working from home, to the way things are working at the moment. We're having to do things differently. So actually, we've challenged ourselves and we've done things differently. So that's great. Obviously, some people finding it a little bit more difficult than others, but to talk me through today and to try and help you get some more ideas as to how you cope with all this is a person that's been working from home, I'm told, for quite some time, and it's part of what he normally does. So welcome this afternoon, Glen Foster from Xero. Hello, Glen.
Hey, Gary. Thanks for having me.
Oh, that's our pleasure. Just for the benefit of the audience, just tell us a bit about you, briefly.
Yeah, look, so my role at Xero, I look after our accounting partner channel, so predominantly accountants, bookkeepers, like anyone in that kind of world. I'm a Xero veteran, I guess you can describe me as. I'm 10 years in, but I've spent the last 15 to 16 years of my career working in the accountancy software world. Right. Originally with some desktop companies, but then 10 years ago, a rather kind of fortuitous cup of coffee with Garry Turner, our UK MD, resulted in me kind of joining him to kind of take on the UK market with Xero.
Great. Well, Garry is the only person that's been on stage at our annual conference the same length of time that I have. You know, he's been to every one, so have I think. So yeah, he's certainly a veteran of ICB. We enjoy having him on. He's doing his global board meetings this week, apparently. But anyway, no, it's good to have you on because it's good to get somebody that's actually down there at the short face. Garry seems to be spending most of his time getting his hair cut and working out of fields at the moment, if we are to believe social media. But anyway, it's at least he's given up telling us all about his bike, which that was getting a bit too much, I think. Yeah, so I understand that Xero are continuing to run. Everybody is doing something, a bit of helping the community mixed in with just keeping the show on the road. Is that right?
Yeah, look, so yes, everyone is still employed as we move forward. I guess there's elements of our business that are much busier than potentially usual. Certainly our customer support team are on hand, and for us it's just really, really important that we can maintain that continuity of service across the board. There's lots and lots of small businesses out there that are crying out for help and support as we roll out new functionality as well, like the furlough functionality. Just really important that we're there to support them kind of through that and make sure that everyone's getting the most out of the product. Yeah,
I think organisations like yours and ours are expected, I think, to look like the duck that's swimming along gently. They don't want to know that our feet are paddling along at a hell of a speed underneath the water. They want a calming influence, which I think is what we're here for. Obviously, that can sometimes seem as if we are not accepting what's going on or trying to ignore it. We're certainly not. But I don't think that anybody else coming on and telling everybody the world is falling down their ears is quite what they expect of us. And the audiences we've had so far have certainly said it in the main, obviously, that they're pleased with this. So most of our members some years ago took very quickly to the cloud. It was something that really helped their way of doing business. It helped them get in touch with their clients. It helped them move around from client to client and gave them such a huge added flexibility. And weren't they great just to have done that in time for this? I mean, you know, you say you moved to Xero 10 years ago. Yeah, big decision, but just the right one, I think.
Yeah, probably pure fluke, but absolutely, it certainly paid dividends. Pardon the accounting pun. But definitely it's been a phenomenal 10 years actually, and looking to where I guess the business has kind of have grown to right now, definitely seems like the right call back at that time.
So how long have you been working from home as part of your job?
Look, so throughout my whole career, I've had like home-based spells. Like I work out of probably our Milton Keynes office. I live in Milton Keynes, so I'm local. But like those days that you can get from home are obviously usually hyper productive. I also spent a lot of the time out on the road, like working with accountants and bookkeepers, and obviously a big part of that was being purely home-based. So I think I've adapted to it fairly well. Our business has probably adapted to working from home fairly well because we have the tools and the means to do it. I think the biggest challenge you have is no one's really used to working 5 days from home a week and then 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and that isolation is a thing that gets you, whether you've got the tools to do it or not. I think that's the difficulty that we've seen, and I guess we've been like lucky enough to kind of grow our business by hiring lots of great people, but then we do have lots of people. And that's the challenge we have, making sure that we can look after them all around the world.
Yeah, I mean, we've got offices around the world, not as big as your offices, but nonetheless offices around the world. And it is difficult to understand everybody's individual needs. And I know that we have global board meetings. I have the meetings with the other chief executives around the country. And yeah, it's becoming increasingly difficult to find a time that suits everybody. So it tends to be sort of 10 o'clock at night, our time, so that everybody's just getting up in Australia. They've been up for about an hour or two in New Zealand, and it spreads round. And so, you know, it has its challenges. But actually, I think it's quite good. And it's surprising, looking at the news that comes out of Australia, other than they have slightly different terminology for everything. So they've got the JobKeeper scheme, you know, etc. We all have the same ways of working. We all have the same challenges when it's hit by something like this.
Completely. I think that we've certainly seen real similarities around the world. I guess with what's going on, I guess the impact is different in different regions. So certainly you look at our kind of UK and US markets, we seem to have been kind of hit harder by the virus and kind of this current state, albeit we're much bigger countries population wise anyway. But definitely there is some real consistency, I think, around the world of like kind of the impact going on, but also the way governments are typically dealing with it.
Yeah. Some time ago, I think it was one of our Inspire tours, I was saying that it's strange that the world of accounting has always had a problem uniting with a common aim and a common set of standards, etc. And actually, I think the software has just joined them together because they all use the same software, whichever part of the world they're in. You know, you can go and you can buy Xero, you can go buy Sage, you can buy Untitled, whatever it might be. And it's the same platform. I mean, there are one or two different bits of terminology, obviously. Goods and service tax as opposed to VAT or whatever it might be, but the principle is the same. And this leveling platform, I think, has been very useful to the profession, actually.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. I think that there was a period of time, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, where everybody kind of thought that accounting was different in like the Southern Hemisphere than it was in the Northern Hemisphere, and bookkeeping was completely different in different countries. I think what we learned when you did have a kind of common platform across it is actually the challenges are really similar. And like the problems and the way people deal with these problems are really similar, which is why I think there's this new kind of undercurrent of like knowledge sharing like across borders. So your ICB members, I'm sure, are talking to people in Australia and New Zealand and the US and various other countries. And actually, there's learnings to be gathered from different countries, but also like you can share the pain and the problems you've got, because it's not like the UK have our own bunch of like bookkeeping or accounting problems or dilemmas that don't exist anywhere else. It's absolutely fairly similar around the world, and the kind of a problem shared is a problem halved, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I always say problem shared is a problem doubled, but we'll leave that one for some other discussion probably. But yeah, and the one thing that we've noticed, particularly on our social media, that it's not, in the past we've sort of gravitated towards the English-speaking countries because it's easier. Because as you know, we Brits don't really tend to learn other languages. I've got a bit of schoolboy French, but you know, that's so many years ago now, I've completely forgotten most of it. But I've noticed on the social media that we're getting a lot of interaction, for example, with ICB in Ukraine. And they are liking our social media, and they're recirculating it, and they're adding to it, etc. And it seems so odd to have another country getting involved with us, but they're sharing their ideas as well. So I mean, it's a fantastic way of doing this. I think bookkeeping and accounting are slightly different, in as much as bookkeeping does tend to be a little bit more local and a little bit more small business focused. So most countries, I think, try and do something different for micro businesses and small businesses, but the general principles are all the same. And we're in 134 countries at the moment, and yeah, they all want to be part of this UK-based organisation. You know, we don't hide that from anybody. This is where it all started. And oh yeah, that's fine, that's great, because UK has got a reputation for having strong education and a strong compliance background and ethics background, which I think is good, and that works well. And I would have, I was concerned many years ago that moving into somewhere like the former Soviet Union, that we might have problems in the amount of digging that we have to do on things like due diligence, etc. But it's accepted, and that's it. So I think that works well. So one of the concerns that some of our members have at the moment, which I'd like to take your take on this, really, is that clients are coming to them and saying, look, we're short on money, but I've got to have these books done. I've got to have my payroll furloughed. I can't pay you at the moment, but if you can hang on, obviously send me the invoice, but I'm not going to be paying it for a while. You must be coming across this a lot, because you've got a lot of accounts going through Xero. Have you got any brilliant suggestions as how to handle that one, other than saying no?
Well, look, I think the key is to tackle it on a case-by-case basis. So like we pull together a customer response team that typically respond to those kind of queries that are coming through to us. And now we're, I guess, like relatively low cost in the grand scheme of things per month, but nevertheless, people are still looking at where they can reduce costs. So I guess flexibility is the key there, and addressing it on a case-by-case basis. For example, I guess we give the ability to kind of downgrade, suspend, delete subscriptions, and we're obviously rolling like month by month. So the idea being that like giving some people some flexibility is great, but also on the other side of that, I guess giving people some people to speak to where you can address it on a case-by-case basis is fairly important to us, and I assume, I guess, fairly similar in that bookkeeping world. I think what we have seen, I guess, when we've spoken to bookkeepers, is there's very few people that are as close to the client as the bookkeeper. Usually that relationship is extremely strong, because they're working closely with them, and we've absolutely seen that, like, more so than ever, I think the value a good quality bookkeeper is bringing to small businesses, because they do need things sorting for loan applications or the furlough scheme, or just making sure that they've got some kind of cash flow forecast. Like we've never seen a good bookkeeper more valuable to our small business customers.
I like the sound of that. It's great. I will use that wherever I speak again. But yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we are a little more personal. We're a little bit more attached to our clients, and I think that's important. It's something which I think when cloud software first came out, we all saw pictures of people with their feet up, standing, lying down by the seaside somewhere, doing the books on a laptop, and that's what it's all about. But actually, I think our members are not like that, really. They just see it as a very, very important help, a tool, and they want to be able to get more clients, to look after more sets of books. I mean, some of our members are quite happy with half a dozen clients, and they will have more time with their family, but as the family grows up, then they can just build and build and build if they want to. So I think that's good. But certainly, I think the cloud was just manna from heaven, as far as if you'll excuse the pun, but manna from heaven, I suppose, really, because it really fit into the lifestyle of the bookkeeper, which is of a very parapathetic, there for the client, far more than the, and I'm generalising, but far more than perhaps accountants that work on the annual compliance part of their business. And so, yeah, I think it's been useful. And I mean, Xero got the Luca for Best Software last year at our Luca Awards. I mean, that is an actual member vote. There is no leaning on anybody to vote that at all. So it speaks volumes, I think, for the fact that people have adapted to what you've got, and you know, you're just part of their life now, really.
Yeah, and I think back to your point about people working at the beach, right? There's a phase of every cloud-based accountancy product had a bearded coffee shop owner in it. Like that was the go-to, and like that's one element of it. But the reality is, you've got like accountants, bookkeepers, kicking around that like are running their whole businesses on the cloud, and it isn't about working from a coffee shop. Actually, they're working from home or they're working from their office. And I think then what you have to make more of is the value of like cloud accounting or cloud bookkeeping goes far above like just being able to access it from anywhere at any time. Like when you start to look at the tools, so bank feeds, cash coding, find and recode, like the functions that are there and were built for bookkeepers, like inherently are like ridiculously important to us. So I think that's the key here.
Yeah.
What we're finding right now is it is about more than just being able to work remotely. Granted that now one of the simple things you can expect is, I was in an office, I've had to go from home, I can still support my Xero clients, like that's fantastic. But you can get that with kind of any, I think, cloud bookkeeping product these days. What you really want is those other benefits that allow you to work much better, much closer with your clients, and really work on, I guess, growing and developing that experience that they get from you as a bookkeeper. That's what we're really focused on, like building great experiences for small businesses and their bookkeepers.
Yeah, I remember years ago when this was first being introduced, and Garry was talking to us about it, and saying that this is the first time bookkeeping software had been sexy, which is a very strange way of describing a piece of software, but I think that was it. It was just a revolution at the time. Now, obviously, lots of other people are catching up, and you know, as people have done with the likes of Uber and everybody else that comes up with a great idea. There's always a leader of the pack somewhere along the line, and other people follow. But yeah, it's something which is good. I think one of the things which, again, talking about Garry has always said when he's been on stage at our summits, is that however automated you make things, small businesses are very personal to people, and he still sees the whole system really being very people orientated. And I think that's right, you know, and that's not just paying lip service to bookkeepers or accountants. I think it's genuinely that small businesses don't go into business to look after books. And I said on here recently, the only businesses I know that went into business specifically to look after books are bookkeepers and accountants. Everybody else have to do this because it's there and it needs doing. And they're not really well equipped to do that. You know, it's a bore, it's a nuisance, it's a frightening thing that they have to do. It's a very time-consuming thing. And I know that Xero and others have come up with different amounts of time which they estimate somebody takes in a month to look after their books, but some of it's quite frightening. You know, it's something like a day a week by the time you include making out invoices, chasing invoices, doing the VAT returns and everything else. And that's such a waste of somebody's time when they're going to be twice as slow at doing anything when they don't know what they're doing, you know, so they should be handing over. But, you know, some businesses do their own, and so be it. But some people obviously won't do that. But one of the other things that we are hearing from our members at the moment is that 80% of our members are women. So they've got extra things about working from home that perhaps not everybody has, which is that in many cases, they've got children running around. And that hasn't happened before. You know, the children have been at school, or the children have been looking after by a nanny or whatever it might be. And now all of a sudden they're there. So you are, fathers do this as well, I suppose, but it's mainly, we're hearing this from mums who are our members, who are saying that I'm having to pick my times when I can talk to a client. And we had a meeting this morning, a Zoom meeting with some of our team, and Amy Copeland, who sometimes anchors this program, was there, and she's got children running around in the background. But I think it's something we've got used to because of this lockdown. Are you finding this yourselves? Are you coming across more and more people who are talking to you while they're also making lunch and keeping the kids quiet and giving them something to read, etc.? Glen, are you still there?
Sorry, Gary, you broke up a little bit then. I just missed that last little bit.
I just wondered if you're coming across different background noises when you're having conversations with clients at the moment.
Oh, lots of them. Even with our teams. Actually, I did one of our leadership team calls last week with one of my twin boys who are 5 months old, sat on my lap. So I think we are like we've just become accustomed to like navigating, and that's the reality, right? And I know back in our business, not to keep mentioning Garry, but he said something really important that was that it's first and foremost, it's your home, it's not your workplace. So if anything needs to bend to accommodate it, it's the workplace, not the home. So that's really relevant, I think, to a lot of people. So whether we're on calls with accounting firms and bookkeeping partners, we're on calls with our colleagues or suppliers, whatever it is, I think we're acutely aware of it's like family first. So if that means that a 4-year-old's going to come running in at the background, or the doorbell goes and you need to deal with it, then look, that's the life that we're in at the minute, and we absolutely have to accommodate that.
Yeah, I think so. We've got quite a few people coming through at the moment to say that actually furlough payments are out today, and Jackie Mount, our resident expert on all things technical, telephoned in this morning to say that her daughter Karen, hi Karen and Jackie, who runs her own practice, has her clients have had the first furlough payments released today. I've got Judith Siddle here, who says one of my clients is furlough grant today. Yippee! Faye says furlough claims paid out today and tomorrow for Monday the 20th. So yeah, that's looking all very positive. Now, if this puts you on the spot, you have to just take it. I'm trying not to pick and choose which questions I give you here. But Helen says on the ICB website, it says discounts for Xero software for members. Our account manager at Xero knows nothing about this, and there are no direct links to the ICB website relating to this. Can members' practices get discounts or not, as we like Xero and use it? So perhaps you don't need to give discounts anymore. That might be an old thing. Would you give us any special treatment as the world's largest bookkeeping organisation?
So look, there's like standard discounts for accounting and bookkeeping partners. A big proportion of that are obviously ICB members. So there are discounts out there which are available. There'll be our standard partner discounts that any bookkeeper or any accounting firm can dial into.
So we need to update our links a little bit. It looks as if we might have broken down on that one. That's probably something we set up many years ago when Garry and I were both in short trousers or something, but never mind. Let's have a look at that. Richard Young says the best Xero feature /openbox search box opens - can search very wide range of things.
Yeah, that's the global search.
Everybody knows what that means. Okay, well, thank you, Richard. That's good.
When you're referring to the global search function, which is obviously really, really well used, especially when you've got a large volume of data and things going on within Xero, being able to find them a bit easier is hugely valuable.
Yeah, because on some products that can be really difficult, and where they give you, a set of answers, and you're asked first before you do anything else to scroll through and see if you can find an answer to your question. And perhaps I'm just difficult at asking questions. I've never found the right question that I want to ask, but so that is good. I mean, customer service must be quite a big thing for an organisation of your size now, because I don't know how many users you've got nowadays, but I know it's a lot.
Yeah, we're over 2 million customers worldwide. So yes, and obviously our product is rolling month by month. So like every 30 days, we effectively renegotiate with every single one of our customers. Which is absolutely the right thing to do, because it drives software companies towards like innovating and building great products, but also like giving the best level of support they possibly can. Otherwise, you've got the flexibility to go elsewhere. But yeah, support is huge for us. So we've got a big support center based out of our Milton Keynes office, supporting our UK customers, but also into other regions. Because if you think of like the Xero product, a large proportion of the functionality is generic around the world. Raising an invoice is raising an invoice. So that means that we can give that extra level of support across kind of non-typical working hours in certain regions. So the UK can pick up US queries and vice versa.
Right. So you are well known for giving out lots of information packs, information bulletins, etc. as an organisation. And you get those beautiful blue graphics over all sorts of things. But Do you have a range of tips at the moment for people for working through the coronavirus? Is that something that you're publishing?
Yeah, well, so our business continuity website has lots and lots of resources on it. So if you go to our website, you'll find the business continuity page, and in there is links to all of the government support. Obviously, links to the things that we're doing around like the furlough scheme. We've also updated our product for the changes to SSP, where you can kind of claim it from day one if you're in self-isolation. As long as a bunch of other resources that are available for things like working from home and tips and tricks around that. So we're trying to bring a range of content out that helps people, I guess, navigate as best they can through the times that we're in right about now.
Great. And you do a lot of research with small businesses. I mean, that sounds a silly thing to say. What else would you do? You're serving a lot of small businesses, but you obviously have quite a resource there for just making sure that you're getting things right with the small business end customer as well as with the practitioner. Yeah,
one of the things that we think we can do that's valuable is we can garner feedback from a large number of small businesses, and we can feed it back to the bookkeeper and accountant community, which then gives them some insight around what small businesses are saying, the challenges that they're having. We have our small business insights data that looks at things like cash flow, average debtor days, that kind of data that hopefully just gives people insights, which is if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper, you're going to really struggle to get a picture that's a big enough base to really draw proper conclusions from. We have the ability to go and do that and then feed that information back, which hopefully allows bookkeepers, accounting firms to kind of take that data and like really use it if they wish, or completely disregard it, but it's there for them to kind of get a good understanding of.
So where do you stand on this whole problem of getting paid? Because there is a certain section of the profession that believes that nobody gets paid on time, whereas most of our bookkeepers seem to report that that's part of their job and they seem to be able to manage it. I mean, how do you find it across your broader marketplace?
Yeah, so historically, kind of like pre-COVID situation, we were finding that typically it was taking businesses about 42 days to get paid. Based on a 30-day term invoice. So that's a third longer than the actual invoice. So not brilliant. If you rolled that out over the kind of FTSE 250, that date's got even longer. So that kind of brought to the surface that like large businesses were really, I guess, hampering small businesses by not paying like as fast as they probably could. It will be interesting to see how that data changes over the next 2 to 3 months, whether it gets like longer, whether we get shorter actually is like people are chasing better to get paid. That will be an interesting picture, I think. But certainly that's what we've seen, that very rarely do people get paid necessarily on time. Certainly the average is longer than a 30-day invoice.
Yeah, I've noticed in recent years a lot of software companies advertising on television, and people they tend to feature a white van man or something or other doing a job, pressing a button on his phone, the invoice is sent, and by the time he gets home, it's been paid. I've never been quite sure about the shortening of the payment time, but I think one of the big areas where cloud software and this uber accessibility can help is at the front end, enabling you to get your invoice in a lot more swiftly than perhaps you used to do in the old days.
Yeah. I think certainly with what we see with our kind of online invoicing functionality and payment gateways, so the ability to pay online, and that certainly drives down the time to get paid. I think like historically, and I probably can't quote me on this, but I think it was demonstrating that you get paid a third quicker if you used like an online invoice with the ability to pay now. Historically, right, the challenge has always been that, and I still get a paper invoice from a lot of people from services. You've got like the invoice comes through the door, they want backs payments, then you've got to go and log in to the bank, and we very rarely go in like to log into our bank account anymore. It's all done on a mobile app, and just like the bureaucracy around doing that was too much to get paid, so it takes longer to pay people. Now the ability to pay online, and like our window cleaner takes payment online like through iZettle. So they'll take a card payment like there and then for the work that they do, and that just like first of all gets them paid quicker, gets the bank into gets the money into their bank account, but also takes away what we were talking about earlier, that time to do the bookkeeping, like to raise the invoice, to chase the invoice once, twice, 3 times, however long that is. really helping get paid that bit faster. So we know that like technology does allow small businesses to get paid faster.
One of the big questions that we get asked a lot, and I have to say we've got quite conflicting information at the moment, is the taking of lien over books. It's something that the profession has struggled with for a long time because the Companies Act says that you can't keep a person's books and accounts from them. But obviously there are occasions, and thankfully they're very, very few, where a client says, well, I'm not paying because I can't afford to, or I think you've billed me far too much. Send me all my books back. And we have this sort of Mexican standoff, and our view has always been that actually you can't hold a person's books back, but perhaps the work that you've done on it, you hang on to that and give them all the source documents. We were told perhaps that's not right. Where it's complicated, of course, is where you've got a software package in the middle, and where our member is paying the license fee for that package. Are you the wrong person to ask, or are you the right person to ask? Where do you stand on that? Who owns that software with all that information on it?
Yeah, look, so probably the wrong person. That's probably a fairly in-depth legal question. Certainly our view is that we would adhere to our terms and conditions, and the subscriber is the person that controls access to the data. It's probably a grey area, and certainly one that I'm not qualified to talk about with legally who owns the data, which is a very different different story. Thankfully, those kind of scenarios are fairly rare, and we certainly work with accountant and small business around that, and that's where obviously the backup of data is really important. So thankfully, I think we've ever had a situation where the small business hasn't got their accounting data back. But there's always two sides to every story. So you say that like the business wants the data, but obviously the accountant or bookkeeper's done the work on it. So there's two sides to every story.
Yeah, you mentioned before you've got twins, so I presume you can occasionally walk into a room when there's an argument. You haven't seen how it started, and both have got an equally plausible excuse as to why it started. I'm afraid customers and members are no different. We thankfully have very, very few. We have a handful of disputes in a year, I would say. But it is very difficult, you know. Oh, well, he didn't tell me he was going to do that. Oh, well, he didn't tell me he wanted me to do that. You know, it's that backwards and forwards. And thankfully, we normally manage to put oil on the water, calm it all down, and both sides then realise that they need to meet in the middle somewhere, and it works out. But I think it's a future program where we get some different people on, some people who are legal, to talk about lien, because the various bits of case study which seem to be completely opposed to each other in their outcome. So it is a difficult one. And we had a lawyer set up our rules on lien, but we've had that questioned as well. So it's the trouble with the law. Depending on how you ask the question, you get a completely different answer.
Yeah.
So what's the next big thing for the Xero product?
So at the minute, we're all about rolling out like functions and features that can really support kind of navigating the current times. So like I said, we focused on payroll to make sure we're compliant and can support the furlough scheme and statutory sick pay kind of changing from day one. Our kind of like cash flow tool that's coming out, which is a really kind of basic cash flow tool, but hopefully will give people some insights into cash flow. And obviously we've rolled out Xero Tax. And now we'll kind of busily go off and start to work on self-assessment as we try and build tools for accountants and bookkeepers to use that adds value to them. So it's like twofold, our strategy. One is building what we think is the best small business bookkeeping tool, but the other one is also building tools that add huge amounts of value to accountants, to bookkeepers, and to people working within those businesses.
Yeah, I think self-assessment tax is something that I would say somewhere in the region of 60-65% of our members do for their clients.
Okay.
And the end of year tax now, because of the changes in rules when they opened up the FRS 105 and the bottom end of FRS 102, that has made a huge difference. And our members on a sort of daily basis are getting qualified in that because it's what customers want. You know, they're asking for that. We don't see it as a major threat to accountants because we are dealing with different types of business that most accountants, they wouldn't look at them twice because there isn't a big enough fee in there. And I don't mean that as some form of insult, but they have different costs and to build into things. So we are different. So that is, we keep an eye on you and see what everything is going on, and certainly zero tax is something of interest, the self-assessment tax as well. And I think we see the bookkeeper offering more, but within the same sort of ceiling that they've always had. It's not as if we're jumping out and becoming accountants or auditors or anything like that. But we are giving a broader service, I think. And that's obviously been helped by software companies like yours. So you obviously know what people want, and that's why you're adding these tools into the box.
Yeah, and look, when we spoke at XeroCon about the human aspect of Xero and how like the biggest change in the industry isn't automation or machine learning, it's people. That's absolutely what we see. So the way that people use technology. So yes, automation takes away some of the data entry elements that you may well have done in the past, but absolutely opens up another large number of avenues for bookkeepers to do other stuff or more clients. Actually, the options and the opportunities are like 2, 3, 4 times what they would have been historically. The only way you probably would have grown your practice was by taking on a few more clients or trying to do more services, but there was only so many hours in the day. Now the hope is that people can do like higher value work, different types of work, which keeps it varied and interesting. That's certainly been the goal as we've been building out the product, to really allow bookkeepers and accounting firms, like whoever it is, to be able to scale their services into new areas and do new things.
Yeah, many years ago, our biggest problem when we first started and when we were talking to people, it was them finding business. Nowadays, it's finding the ability to do more business because it keeps coming at them. I mean, there isn't a shortage of work out there at the moment. And certainly our members, the ICB reputation is growing quite considerably, thankfully, and people are asking for ICB bookkeepers, but they certainly understand what a bookkeeper does more now, I think, and it's appreciated and it's necessary. So that is good. Richard Young, again, who was very complimentary about your service, and just said, some absolute pearls of wisdom, very straightforward: how to get paid quickly, include in the service agreement, use Go Cardless, treat late payment as an indication of an unhappy customer, and go and talk to them. I think that's a brilliant piece of very basic advice. Sometimes we forget the basics.
Sounds so simple, right? But sounds like Richard's got the perfect solution. As why I couldn't understand why anybody wouldn't adopt something like Go Cardless to get their payments coming in on a kind of recurring monthly basis. So
yeah, I remember going to the Sage Roadshow in Birmingham, and the accounting web had just done a big survey as to what could accounting practices do to better appeal to their clients. And the top of the list was talk to them. The fact that accountants had to be told that, I think, was a bit of a surprise to me, certainly, if not to the accountants. There was a bit of a nod, and there was a lot of other people. And I remember one person actually stood up and said, yes, but if you talk to them, they've got to realise they're paying for it. And I thought, well, sums it all up, really. I think we've always said that our members, one of the big unique selling points they have is that they do communicate well with their clients. And certainly in these times of coronavirus lockdown, of furloughing and everything else, having an old friend of your bookkeeper coming along and talking to you and helping you through this has really, I think, cemented that relationship, bookkeeper and small business.
Yeah, I think that we talk about the USP for accountants and bookkeepers, and predominantly bookkeepers, right? And I think the big part of that USP now isn't technology, because everyone's using technology. It's actually the relationship. It's the experience your customers get. So if you took a step back and really looked at how do my clients feel about me, right? How do they feel about the experience they get? And then if you're brutally honest with yourself, really getting a good understanding of whether you deliver a world-class experience. That's the goal. I walk into bookkeeping practices and accounting firms, and sometimes the experience from that front door as you walk through is actually fairly average, and sometimes you walk in and you feel quite special. And if that's the impression I get, I imagine that clients get a similar one. And even the same when you're on the phone, how quickly you respond to people, the tools that you use, how you track things, do you track things like NPS. Do you know if your customers are happy or not? There's lots that you can do to really try and figure out how you enhance that experience. And that will be a differentiator for, I guess, a couple of years before the vast majority of bookkeeping firms and accounting firms really kind of catch on to them.
Yeah, we find that a lot of our members nowadays are still working with firms of accountants, even though technically they have the skill and the ability to be able to do, say, year-end stuff themselves. That relationship the bookkeepers and accountants have together is a very prized relationship, I think, as well, because you can talk to your client on a regular basis, but you've got somebody who's, let's face it, is qualified at a much higher level, who knows more than you do and can give proper tax advice, not just let's get the tax paid properly and all the rest of it. It's just another string to the bow as far as a good bookkeeper is concerned, I think. So it's important moving forward that I think we recognise our place, we recognise what we mean to businesses, and we don't ever underestimate that. And we just make that relationship better and make the services that we provide broader. But just be good at what we do, and this is what we always say to our members: you've got to be good at what you do. You when you're dealing with accounts, you can't wing it because it goes wrong too quickly.
Yeah, and I think we see that, like, the small businesses that really benefit from using our products are the ones that have an accountant and a bookkeeper working on the file. So actually, they've got a team of people effectively making sure that the financial health of their business is there. Like, that's of huge value, and absolutely the kind of ideal model we would love to get to, where more small businesses have kind of an accountant and a bookkeeper, and they're both working in tandem. I think interestingly, what you see kind of in the industry, and there is some data on this, it shows that these kind of younger business owners coming through are much more likely to kind of want to pass on tasks that they don't enjoy doing themselves. Like, I guess a simple explanation of that is more people have a cleaner or a gardener than they've ever had in their life. And I'm not trying to equate the two to the same as kind of like bookkeeping or accounting, but nevertheless, we're more likely to say, do you know what, I'm not very good at bookkeeping, so actually I'd rather not do it. I'd rather find somebody who is good at it and does have a business doing it. And as long as the price is fair and reasonable to me, I will outsource that to them so I can focus on the stuff that I am good at.
Yeah. We often liken it to being a gardener. You know, you want somebody to come and mow your lawns because they've got their time to do it and the chance to do it. You wouldn't want your gardener turning up and saying, look, I've got this fantastic new mower. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. I'm going to leave it with you. You do the lawns and I'll come and collect it at the end of the week. It's not what they want. You know,
exactly.
They've made that decision already just to pass on the work.
Yeah, completely agree.
One question I've been asked a couple of times, and we've had it over the last couple of weeks, actually, we need to know. When calculating the furlough payments, Xero calculations have been slightly out. It's only by about 25, 30 pence a time, but it can make a difference. Now, I understand that you're looking at this, and am I right, you're recalibrating or something?
I couldn't tell you if I'm brutally honest. It would be worth, like, if they haven't been through to our support team, absolutely worth going through them. Our payroll team will be able to pick that up. I'm sure if there's something that isn't quite calculating right, then we'll get a fix out for that ASAP.
Another tip here, Richard's trying to get his name in lights, obviously. You know, he's aiming to get a Luca at the end of next year or something, or end of this year, whenever. Sorry to get too much press. Am I the only? No, I do, but don't charge by the hour. I charge by the month, and my customers know they can call me at any time. I spent an hour with a customer yesterday helping them prepare for a vital board meeting this morning. Right, good, Richard. Some people still don't feel comfortable charging by the hour. I don't know what you're finding, Glen. Is this still the case?
I think there's still a mixture out there. I think we see more kind of fixed fee billing going on, where, like, people will probably they'll set some kind of soft guidelines around what fair usage is, but actually they will want like a fixed monthly income rather than charging somebody by the hour, which probably, to Richard's point, means that he can probably deliver a really great level of service because the business owner isn't necessarily worried about how long he's on the phone for or how long he's got the bookkeeper working on something, continually racking up cost. And then I think we see certainly in that world around, like, actually setting out engagement letters or terms where people can review that fee at a relatively regular base. So if someone is kind of taking up way too much time, then you'll have the relationship to go back and have that conversation with them and maybe tell them how much time you've been spending on their job. And usually most people are fairly reasonable to either dial back the amount that they're using the bookkeeper or ideally increase the fee level that they've got.
It's down to talking again, I think. We do get a lot of our members say, well, I'm taking on a brand new client. How do I know how much to charge? And I think one of the options we do give them is say, well, look, say to your client, I'm going to charge you by the hour because I don't know how much time I'm going to take on this. But as soon as I know a bit more about the business, let's sit down. We can talk how to spread the cost over 12 months so you get no great shocks. And then you can go on to monthly payments. But the main thing is, I think you've just got to talk to the client, remind them what it is you're doing. Don't just do it all without telling anybody, because they'll suddenly start thinking you're sitting at home doing nothing. But also, if you are billing hourly and you know that they've got a particularly big month where you're going to do more work, tell them about it before it happens. I must admit, we do come across some of our members who are so worried about it, they just shove in the bills, keep their fingers crossed and wait to hear. And it's the wrong way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, to your point, it's like lots of conversations right with the client, and don't be afraid to go back and explain, like they're business owners, I think, just as the bookkeepers will be. So people understand and are sympathetic to how people operate. So if someone's taking up too much time, or certainly more time than what you think is fair from a billing perspective, you should absolutely have that conversation. I don't think there's necessarily a right answer to how you bill. I think that it's like, it really depends on the bookkeeper, the small business. You may find a mixture in there anyway, but I think it's really just identifying what works for you and what works for your clients, and then rolling with that. You probably do want to try and adopt one consistent way of doing it though, just for simplicity.
Yeah, I think one size doesn't fit all in this profession at all, and I think that has to be borne in mind. And in fact, I heard recently, not one of our members, but somebody who had put together what they called a boutique service, where everybody had to be on a particular piece of software, everybody had to do a certain amount of work themselves, and they were losing clients. And I think it's because they'd become unpersonal, if I can put it that way. And it's easy to fire somebody that you haven't got a close relationship with, or that's how I put it down. But I think we have to be careful with that. If I can just take a couple of minutes to tell everybody what's going on for the rest of this week. So everybody listening, don't forget, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday, it's our Inspire Tour. So it's the first time we've run Inspire Tour virtually, but we are going to do that. But that doesn't mean it's not packed with absolutely everything that hopefully you'll need to know. So tomorrow, it's all about anti-money laundering, the good old anti-money laundering and ethics. So in the morning, Steve Hardwick is going to be here. He's going to give you a rundown of what you need to do. It's going to be practical advice, quite in-depth advice, how you look at your clients, what it is you need to know about your clients, the sort of questions you ask yourself. It's very much back to basics. So any of you that have been doing this for a couple of years now want to just make sure you're doing it right. And those of you who've relatively new to setting in practice, this is the ideal spot for you. Then in the afternoon, we've got some ethical questions, which are quite interesting because we get a lot of ethical questions. How should I deal with this with my clients? And we've got Mark Lee, who's a well-known speaker, and he is going to be with us to talk about ethics. So questions like, my client has asked me to do X and I don't think I should, what should I do? And things like that, and even more in depth. On Wednesday, we've got payroll and then cash flow. So Claire Warner, who went down an absolute storm week before last when she was here, you really enjoyed her, and she's been very good at Summit as well. She is on, and she'll be talking about payroll. And then ICB's Director of Learning, Peter Stewart, will be talking to you about cash flow and how to do cash flow, how to work the cash flow through, what you really need to achieve through having a good cash flow, what purposes it's there for, and how to work with your clients. And actually, in many cases, explain to your client that they need a cash flow, because some of them still don't know that. And then on Thursday, the last day, it's all about marketing and systemizing. So Paula Veasley-Smith, who did the very successful business growth seminars for us, is actually not talking about growing a business. but talking about marketing it to make sure that your business is perceived properly and that you are taking maximum advantage of your reputation and what you can offer people. And then in the afternoon, we're finishing off with Claire Mannell, who's talking about systems that she's brought into her practice using years and years of experience, not all of it just in bookkeeping and accounting, to make sure that your business is properly set up so that it runs away nicely in the background. It's unfortunately with some bookkeepers, it's a bit like the story of the cobbler's wife who's never got any decent shoes. We look after everybody else's business 24/7. And then we forget to look after our own and how that works. So I think that should be a really good week. And so morning session 12 and then 2 in the afternoon for the second session. And if you go and book this online through your ICB portal, it's £45 for all 6 sessions. And then you get the ability to download them so you can hang on to these. It's not bad. It's a really good price. And the other thing is that if you and your staff would all like to take part in this, there is a special discount where you've got 5 or more of you, and I know that's a lot of our practices nowadays. You will get an extra 15% off the top of that price. So that's a new offer that's come out because one of our members actually asked for it. So we thought that sounds like a good idea. So that is something new. Now, our big sponsor for this is Auto Entry. They've been absolutely brilliant. Again, this is now the 3rd year, I think it is, that they are sponsoring this. So they'll be popping in and they'll be talking about things as well. And there'll be lots of new product that they've got and talking about how they link into all your bits of software, etc. And, a big thanks to them because they're not going to get a chance to see the color of your eyes this year. They're going to rely upon you being at the end of a video, but they're there. So thanks to Ed Brendan and everybody at Auto Entry. They're a fantastic bunch of guys. Could be because they come from Ireland, I suppose. Anyway, so Glenn, back to you. Thank you for allowing me that few minutes there just to get our advert out. Make sure we get front. Actually, there's a building astronomically on that, so that's absolutely fantastic. So what about you next then? What happens next? We start to come out of lockdown. We start to come out of all these problems. So what do you think are the big challenges we're all going to face as accounting and bookkeeping businesses?
Well, I think that post lockdown, it would be naive of us all. I'm sure we're not thinking that things will just get back to normal straight away. I think that we will obviously have to deal with the hangover or the extended fallout that comes from this. So I think we'll all be kind of in this battle to support small businesses for kind of a long period of time. So we're just focused on making sure that, like I said earlier, our support team are geared up to be able to drive the right kind of level of support and quick turnaround of time. Part of my remit at Xero is I look after our consulting team that support accountants and bookkeepers. So making sure that actually our accountants and bookkeepers feel well supported with their clients that they've got on Xero, and also the ones that they've had to kind of hurriedly try and put onto Xero to get up to speed and to really support them well. So that's where we are. We're not looking too far ahead at the minute, other than week by week, month by month, really trying to make sure that the product's in a great place, the support levels in a great place, and actually we're kind of delivering on what we think is a really important partner program that we have, and making sure that we support all of our customers. Okay,
they are going to be strange times, I think, when we come out. The Prime Minister obviously was back today, standing at the podium outside number 10, and I think he's always been very open and realistic that there are going to be some huge tough times ahead of us, but we've all got to work together. So it's exactly the same for the bookkeeping profession and the software companies that help us serve our clients. We've really got to work together on this because that's the future. I can see there will be a few problems when we come out, but I think we're going to be so pleased to be out of lockdown that we're all going to be working really hard to make sure that we continue on. And obviously every business is going to want to make sure that their business continues one way or another. It might be different, but everybody's still going to need to get paid. Everybody's still going to need services. So yeah, I think there's some interesting times ahead, as they say.
Yeah, it'll be interesting
to know when they're going to be.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the bounce back is like. So, like the number of new businesses being created in 3 months' time, whether actually some people that maybe weren't in business or have closed down previous businesses are then suddenly creating new businesses to get started and get up and running. So I think that will be an interesting tell on kind of how strong our economy will be for the next few years.
Yeah, I've been quite impressed by the number of businesses that have become home delivery businesses. My daughter bought me, or my wife and I, a hamper of food, which had normally been the sort of food that you'd get at a function. It was a company that provided function food, you know, lots of nibblers and all the rest of it. And this young man certainly turned up the door and said, a friend of yours wanted you to have some food. So there were 2 packets of beautiful food, all nicely prepared. My wife and I just opened it, sat down, and it was fantastic. And that's something they've never done before. But I think that depending on how successful it's been, and it seems to be very successful, I think they're probably going to add that to their list of things that they can do. So, you know, it's in very small ways, I think, but it's obviously going to be a bit more of a problem for the likes of Virgin Atlantic and everybody else that worried about their planes lying around doing nothing. But I think somebody will always make something out of a challenge like this.
Yeah, and I think that we're all looking for those small positives, right? And that's absolutely one. I know we've had fruit and veg delivered to the door, coffee beans, like lots of stuff from local businesses where we've tried to avoid necessarily buying from major supermarkets. And actually the quality has been much better than you normally get. And I feel like we're doing as much as we can right now to support some of those small businesses. And that feels like I would hope that they continue to do that service, because we found it amazing, actually. It's been great for us to get that stuff delivered to the door.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Actually, I've got one thing here from Lee at Addo. Could you repeat the offer you mentioned, Gary, please? I presume that's the offer for Inspirator, which is 5 or more people, and you get a total 15% discount on your tickets. Now, you should be able to book that normally on your My ICB. If you've got any problem, if you give our office a call, 0203 405 4000. It's the normal office number. There'll be somebody there that can help you with that. And if you've already booked for yourself and you want to bring your staff in now because of the special offer, again, it's not quite as simple as it sounds, but so therefore if you call us up, we can sort that out for you while you're online. It's a good bit of staff training. Those of you who are just in practice for yourself and you need some annual training to put on your training schedule, then this is ideal for that. You get CPD. There'll be all sorts of quizzes and questions throughout the day, and that'll be fantastic. Yeah, so I hope, Lee, that was the question to which you were referring. But thank you for that. So, Glen, is there anything you want to sort of tell us whilst you're on? I mean, what is it that Xero want to tell us at the moment that I have unfortunately failed to ask you at the moment?
I think the only thing is just that, look, we're doing our very best to be there for our partners and for our customers. So please, speak to your account manager if you're a Xero partner. Use the support team if you're struggling with stuff. Whilst we're all based from home at the minute, we're absolutely all still working hard to deliver what we strive for, which is kind of just great experiences. So please reach out if there's anything people need at all.
Great, thank you. And thank you for coming on as my guest today. It's always good to have a new face on here. And, you and I haven't had a discussion like this before, so that's been good. Thank you for trying to help with some of the challenges that we have at the moment. If we can get somebody to talk to us about that furlough payment discrepancy, as I say, it's only pence, but it's something that means that as bookkeepers, it throws us back to the old days. We have to do things manually, which as far as I'm concerned is great for revision. That's brilliant. And that is good. Everybody that's listening, don't forget that ICB remains open. All of our staff are working remotely, but our telephone service, because it's also in the cloud, is all working as it always has been. So that's 0203 405 4000. Whoever you speak to, if that's not the right person, you can be put through to anybody. You can be put through to our helpline. So that's AML helpline, money laundering helpline, technical support helpline, or legal. That's all available to you as it always has been. And if you are wanting to take exams, whether you want to up your knowledge and perhaps look at something in a level 4, or you've decided you now need to do payroll because you've not done it before and you're now being asked all these questions about furloughing, or you want to do self-assessment tax, all those examinations are available to you online, as they always have been. And if you're taking your final exam, where you had to go out to one of the Pearson VUE centres, they are not available at the moment, obviously, but we now have a brand new proctoring system, which means that through the screen that you're looking at and your camera, we can make sure that you're the one that's doing the exam, and you need your phone by the side of you with an app on it so that it checks that there isn't somebody coming in and handing you the answers to all the questions. But apart from that, it means that you can get your M8 done, which means you can go straight in and apply, therefore become a full member MICB. So it's all available to you, everything. I think we're the only professional body that has had no break at all in its offer, which we're very proud of. And over the weekend, I think we had about 5 or 6 people taking it. One particular person, for some unknown reason, took it at 1 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, so my thanks again to Glen. Please, none of you forget that the Inspire Tour is on tomorrow, so that's instead of this ICB TV. So it won't. ICB TV will not now be on till our Friday program, which once again will be Thank Furlough It's Friday, and we can round up the week and tell you everything that's happening. Thank you very much indeed, everybody, for coming on. Have a safe time. Keep yourself away from trouble. Keep yourself distanced. A bit longer, we should be all right then, but stay safe. Thank you very much indeed. Bye.